So let's talk about quarterbacks first, the draft process. What's your tip on this? Where are we taking QBs? How are you building your draft?
You don't need Patrick Mahomes to win your draft. You should wait at quarterback. It's that simple. When we look at quarterback in the league today, it's a pass-happy league. There are legitimately 20 guys who could start at the position any given week for you for fantasy purposes. So you can wait. Unless you're starting 2 quarterbacks in your league, it's a different scenario there. But wait until the late rounds and you'll get good value.
I look at it this way. Number 2 quarterback last year scoring, Matt Ryan. Number 10, you're talking about Russell Wilson. The difference was about 3 points per week. It's not that big of a difference. Wait on it. Get some better players. All right, you brought up Mahomes. Just talk about him briefly and what he could mean to your team.
Well, sure. I mean, the temptation is there after last year's historic numbers. But that's the key. It was historic. 5,000 plus, 50 passing touchdowns. I think we're going to see regression, and that's not a bad thing per se. Mahomes could go out and throw 38 touchdown passes, pass for 4,600 yards, be the #1 fantasy quarterback, and that's still massive drop-offs there. It just shows you, though, it was an outlier of a season. Don't draft him in the 1st or 2nd round. It's too early. He's amazing. It's not a knock on him, but it's just too early to draft a quarterback.
You know what? He probably would have fit the bill of value quarterback last year.
Yeah, he did.
Now looking at this year, where are you going for value?
Value, looking in the later rounds, there's lots of value to be had this year. I think Kirk Cousins really stands out. Fantasy audiences sometimes are fickle. You would have no idea that this dude threw for 30 touchdown passes last year and another 4,000-yard season, and you can get him legitimately in the end of drafts for a bologna sandwich. He screams value on a very talented offense as well.
Let me go value and go Jameis Winston. I know some people are going to say, oh, my goodness, Jameis Winston, he doesn't even play that often. But when he does, he has been good. Winston started 9 games last year, 20 fantasy points in 5 of those. And now Bruce Arians is there. And, oh, by the way, he's had a top 10 fantasy QB when he's been their coach 5 different times. So we love Bruce Arians. We love what he can do there. Next up, value's great. Sleeper, maybe better.
Lamar Jackson. I'm all in on Lamar Jackson this season. Last year, he led the position in rushing yards despite not taking over as a starter until week 11. Just think of what we get an entire season under center. It's not going to be big passing numbers, but remember, every 40 rushing yards is the same amount of fantasy points in most leagues as a passing touchdown. Lamar Jackson, with his legs and a little bit of his arm, I thought he looked pretty good so far in the preseason as a passer. He's got big-time upside.
I love Lamar Jackson. We met him 2 years ago. He was a great guy. How about Dak Prescott? All the talk in Dallas right now is what's going to happen with Ezekiel Elliott. We could talk about him a little bit later in the show, but with Amari Cooper as a wide receiver in Dallas, you saw Dak go from 17 and about a half points, fantasy points per week to about 21 and a half. He's got a good offensive line, and Dallas may have one of the easiest early season schedules. I love Dak as a sleeper. If you're going auction, you're probably getting him very cheap. Now, the news that it blew up the world this weekend in the world of sports was Andrew Luck retires. From a fantasy standpoint, what does it mean?
It means a lot of things, so we have to flesh this out. I think we go straight to the quarterback position first and foremost. Jacoby Perset, we've already seen a season of him in 2017 under center. He was the number 21 fantasy quarterback that year, thanks in part to his legs, 260 on the ground, 4 rushing touchdowns. Now this year, another opportunity to step up. He's in the quarterback 2 conversation, but his presence is an obvious downgrade on Andrew Luck. Sorry, Colts fans, but you know I'm right. T.Y. Hilton gets a downgrade. He goes from being a back-end wide receiver 1 to a back-end wide receiver 2. You have to downgrade Eric Ebron, who was a guy who we were looking at as a tight end 1 after last year's breakout season. He's tough to trust as a mid-range tight end 2. And even Marlin Mack gets a downgrade. The run game, sure, it's not Andrew Luck, but in the same right, the game scripts is what we care about here. Marlon Mack goes from my running back number 18 down to 24. It's going to be volatile, though. We saw it last year. If the Colts had a lead, Marlon Mack was good. If they didn't, he was not good for fantasy purposes.
So is Jeff Ratcliffe avoiding Colts?
Not necessarily, because everything comes with a value. So if you get T.Y. Hilton in the right spot or Marlon Mack in the right spot, I wouldn't shy away. And also, if you already drafted these guys, it's not the worst-case scenario. It's not like Tim Tebow is taking over quarterback. Jacoby Perset's at least going to salvage some value for them.
A look now at the top projected running backs according to CBSSports.com. Saquon Barkley is right there at the top of your board. Ezekiel Elliott, I think we'll have to talk about that as well. So Jeff, is it clear that Barkley is number one? Is there wiggle room there to draft someone else?
There is wiggle room. I think when people see rankings, they say, well, you have Zeke at this ranking and Barkley here, and Barkley's at 1, Kamara's at 2, therefore you always have to draft Barkley. And that's not the case. There's such a minute difference between Barkley, McCaffrey, and Kamara that if you said I'm absolutely drafting McCaffrey there, well, I'm not going to talk you out of it. But in the same right, I'm drafting Barkley at 1 ahead of those guys. But, you know, it's really close between all three. They're the chalk.
Double-digit points in 15 games last year for Saquon Barkley. All right, how about we do this? We're feeling safe about Barkley at number 1. There are some risky running backs out there, so they could be off the board early or not. We're going to bring up our panic meter. I love this. And I just mentioned his name, Zeke. Let's talk about it. Are you panicking? What are we doing?
I'm at a 5 with Ezekiel Elliott. And I'll tell you what. Here's the thing. I do think he plays this season. I do. But I don't know for certain. And with the preseason, the way that Tony Pollard has played, I did not think this kid had it in him. He had 139 carries in 3 years at Memphis, and now he's being used as a true every down back in the preseason. He has played every single one of Dak Prescott's snaps, and there has been no other running backs on the field with Dak Prescott. Pollard looks very good, so if you draft Zeke, you definitely have to draft Pollard late.
Agree with you there. Let's go to Melvin Gordon. This is dicey.
It is very dicey. I'm at a 10, a legit 10. I learned my lesson, and Twitter will not let me forget about last year with Le'Veon Bell. I learned it. I think we could see Gordon stay out for a very long time with the way that Austin Eckler plays. And by the way, Melvin Gordon missed 4 games last year, and the Chargers lost 0 of those 4 games. You have Eckler there. You have Jackson. I would actually, believe it or not, pick Eckler ahead of Gordon in drafts right now. I'm not touching Gordon until the 6th round.
Could not agree with you more. I would go 10 on Melvin Gordon as well. Next one is Le'Veon Bell, and you just mentioned him, so he messed up some people's teams last year. Are you panicking all this year about him?
I am not, actually. I think he's in a great spot. I'm at a 1 with Le'Veon Bell. He's in a great spot with the Jets. And everybody out there who says Adam Gase running backs don't produce, Kenyon Drake was the number 14 fantasy running back last year. That's Kenyon Drake. This is Le'Veon Bell, a much better player, a 3-down guy, not subject to game script. If they're losing, he's going to catch the football. If they're winning, he's going to run the football. I still like him, and you get him at a decent value.
Yeah, it seems like he's going anywhere from 5 to 6, something like that. I might panic a little more, maybe like 2 or 3, but not much more than you. This is the one I have a feeling we might differ a little bit. Todd Gurley, where are you?
Yeah, I'm at a 2 with Gurley. I'm actually not drinking the Kool-Aid that much. And I know it still hurts in Week 16 that you saw C.J. Anderson rumbling for the 167 yards and a touchdown as you were in the fantasy championship without him. But the thing is, they are trying to preserve him. This is not a guy who's going to see 26 touches or 25 touches a game like he did last year. But even with 18 touches a game, Todd Gurley can be super effective, and you get him at a discount.
And maybe I'm a little salty because I'm one of those guys and I'm losing in the championship because I go a little higher on the panic meter, somewhere around like 6 or 7, because I think they are going to try to preserve him. I think that the Rams believe they can win a Super Bowl this year, and they need him for that Super Bowl run. So that's our panic meter. We'll get out of the first round, just like we do with the other positions. Value, where are we going?
How about Chris Carson? Now, the secret's a little bit out on this guy, but we had heard all along from Pete Carroll that they were going to go with a committee in the backfield, and then what do they do in the preseason? They almost exclusively use Chris Carson as the top guy. Rashad Penny has some value as a handcuff, but Chris Carson last year with almost 250 carries and now potentially more work as a receiver screams value in an extremely run-heavy offense. I love him as my second running back.
We saw that graphic there. I kind of like Darius Geis a little bit too. I don't believe in Adrian Peterson. We all were hyped on Geis last year. Obviously the torn ACL. He was a rookie, which then leads me right there to that. Rookie. We're going to double down on rookies here. Who do you like as a rookie that could have an impact this season?
There's no Saquon in this class. That's the thing. But there's a lot of interesting players. And I think the kid who stands out the most to me is Miles Sanders from the Eagles. He's in a prime spot, a perfect back for that system. And yes, Jordan Howard is there, but Sanders is going to take over in this backfield. The thing about it is be patient. If you draft Sanders in September, you might not get much, but he will take over ultimately in this backfield. By October, November, you're going to be really happy you have him.
I'm watching the board and I'm seeing where Josh Jacobs is going, and it's a little odd. It kind of fluctuates in different drafts, but I really like Jacobs. When you look at a guy that Alabama, 41% of his carries ended up going for first down. So I'm all in on a guy like that.
Yeah, except the first 5 weeks, get this, they face the Broncos, they face the Vikings, they face the Bears. That is a rough set of matchups for Josh Jacobs. So another guy, be patient. Be patient with rookie running backs.
All right, speaking of patience, we've been patient all along. We love your tips. You gave us tips on quarterbacks. What about a tip on a running back? What are you advising people?
In your drafts, prioritize getting a top 10 option at the position. So top 10 running backs on your board. Get at least one of those guys, maybe two. Don't push it. But running back is so thin at the top this year, you have to get one of those guys to start your draft. It's going to be a first or a second round pick.